to conceive, and she gave birth to Samuel. She when she prayed, she told God that first child she was going to give to God, because of course when that's the you give God your first and your best, right? And then secondly, what that also does is that it shows that you are faithful. That God's going to give you more. If He only gives you one, like you already know He's going to give you more because you're giving the one that He did give you to Him. So it's multiple layers in that in itself. But at the same time, while all this is going on currently at this time, Eli, he is the judge of not I ain't gonna say the entire land. He's the judge of the region. Basically, he is the leader of the region for the Israelite people. And he is because they are in where is it at again? I forget exactly where they are. Shiloh, yes, they're in Shiloh. That's where the temple, where the Ark of the Covenant. That's where the temple is, and everything like that. And so, with that being said, Eli, he is presumably a Levite at this time too, as well, and he is pretty much he runs the temple. He's the leader of the region, things of that nature, and pretty much. But also, what I was getting back to was the fact that it wasn't really about Eli. It was pretty much about the wickedness of Eli's sons. Eli's sons were basically were priests, right? Because they are in part of the priesthood. However, what was going on is that they weren't doing what they were supposed to do. They was getting over on church people. They were pimping God out, things like that. And it was also because of Eli's sons that God changed the way things went a little bit. At least that's how I interpret it. As you look in Samuel chapter 2 verse 30, you'll see that it says, because of Eli's house, well, summarize it's basically because of Eli's house, those who honor God went from God now said that those who honor him, he is going to honor, because Eli's sons didn't honor him the way he was supposed to, and they were just doing what they wanted to. And so that was at least something remarkable that I at least wanted to state before I got into the text. So pretty much it was a lot going on before Samuel was born. Basically, there was a lot of disarray going on, and people weren't following God the way they should be. But I'll actually read the lesson now, and then we'll get into it. That was just background. Anyone have any questions before I did? Okay, hearing none, I'm just go ahead and start reading. And it reads, "And Samuel ministered unto the Lord before Eli, and the word of the Lord was precious in those days. There was no open vision. And it came to pass at the time when Eli was laid down in his place, and his eyes began to wax dim, that he could not see. And ere the lamp of the Lord went out in the temple of the Lord, where the ark of the God was, and Samuel was laid down to sleep, that the Lord called Samuel, and he answered, Here I am. And he ran unto Eli and said, Here I am, for thou callest me. And he said, I called not, lie down again. And he went and lay down. And the Lord called yet again Samuel. And Samuel arose and went out to Eli and said, Here I am, for thou didst call me. And he answered, I called not, my son, lie down again. And Samuel did not yet know the Lord, neither was the word of the Lord yet revealed unto him. And the Lord called Samuel again for the third time, and he arose and went to Eli and said, Here I am, for thou didst call me. And Eli perceived that the Lord called the child. Therefore Eli said unto Samuel, Go, lie down, and it shall be, if he call thee, and thou shalt say, Speak, Lord, for thy servant heareth. So Samuel went and lay down in his place. And Samuel grew. So now we jump into verse 19. And Samuel grew, and the Lord was with him, and did not let none of his words fall to the ground. And all of Israel, from Dan to even to Beersheba, knew that Samuel was established to be the prophet of the Lord. And now we jump into verse 7. And Samuel spake unto all the house of Israel, saying, If ye do return to the Lord with all your hearts, and then put away the strange gods of and Azaroth from among you, and prepare your hearts unto the Lord, and serve him only, and he will deliver you out of the hand of the Philistines. Then the children of Israel did put away Balaam and Azaroth, and served the Lord only. And Samuel said, Gather all Israel to Mizpah, and I will pray for you unto the Lord. And as Samuel was offering up burnt offerings, the Philistines drew near to the battle against the Israel, but the Lord thundered with a great thunder that day upon the Philistines, and this comforted them, and they were smitten before the Lord. Then Samuel took a stone and set it between Mizpah and Shin, and called the name of it Ebenezer, saying, "Hitherto hath the Lord helped us." So, pretty much, the text jumped around. We went from chapter 3 to chapter 7, but I'll of course break down what happened between chapter 3 and chapter 7 for you all, because I'm not sure if you only read the text, you're going to miss out on a big piece of the story of Samuel, and you want to make sure you gather all of that, as much of it as you can at least. And so, pretty much what we're saying is that we know from the background I pretty much gave earlier, Samuel, he was given to the temple. He was sent to the temple pretty much as soon as he was weaned as a baby, right? Like, literally his mom, like his dad was going up there to for the annual prayer and everything, and then his mom was like, "Oh no, I'll take the boy." Like, he wanted his mom to come with him. He's like, "No, I'm gonna wean the boy, and then when I get done weaning him, I'm going to take him and I want to leave him there, basically to be raised up in the church or raised up in the temple and whatnot." And so pretty much, that was, of course, it's part of her prayer. Like, she was honoring her, what she said she was gonna do. She said she prayed to God saying, "Oh, give me a son. I'll give him to you, give him back to you," pretty much. And I was like, so she did that. And so, and really at this time, this was in a time where Israel wasn't all together. I mean, I'm getting a little ahead of myself right now, but pretty much Samuel's looked at as, we see here, he's pretty much called a prophet, right? But he was actually seen as the last judge and really the first prophet since Moses. Well, the first Moses-like prophet, I will say. Because again, at the time, there had been many judges before, and we know Samson. He was a judge of a specific region. There's other judges as well. I know Samson is pretty much one of my favorite ones, so that's why I remember him. You had a question? Oh, okay. And so pretty much he wasn't the only judge that there ever was. Of course, Moses was as well. But pretty much, they were all pretty much just regional leaders, right? Moses, I mean, he did the entire Israel country, like all the whole community, all the tribes, all 12 of them and whatnot. And Samuel also was end up growing to that same level acclaim, right? But before Samuel came along, they weren't really all together. They weren't under one person's leadership. Moses wasn't there to guide them anymore. So they were all trying to figure things out themselves. They had a few regional leaders, and honestly, it got to a point where some of them were actually, like, some of the tribes of Israel were actually fighting against each other. And of course, the Philistines were coming in. They were stealing land. They was stealing the promised land back from them, because of course the Israelites came in and stole the land, or took the land from the Philistines, because it was their promised land. And then pretty much, as without having a leader, you're going to start to break up, fall apart, because a lot of people, that's a lot of opinions. People gonna do what they want to do, and people gonna fight. And so pretty much the nation as a whole, also, like, aside from having civil wars, they were also in a spiritual drought, because Eli, he was the judge at the time, but he also wasn't a judge of the entire land. Not the entire land recognized him. There was a lot of people in the land, because they mingled with the Philistines, who were or the people of the land. They were of course taking over the land and coming back in. Their influence was as well. They started worshiping their gods. They started worshiping the Balaam and Azareth. The Balaam, or that's just the plural for it, because it's actually Baal, right? But with that being said, that was like the god of the storm, or I guess the sky, basically. Like, they when they doing rain dances is pretty much what it was. And then you have the Ashtaroth one, because I spoke earlier. I told you how important it was for people to bear children. So it was a god of fertility. So those are the most two important things for them, because you gotta think, they ain't got grocery stores. They growing food. They need rain, and they need kids, because they need someone to work the ground and stuff like that too. Because I'm pretty sure they had slaves, but still. So those are their two main gods. And so pretty much the Israelites, instead of worshiping God, they started worshiping the people, what they started seeing their neighbors doing. And so with that being said, it was a spiritual drought going on. And really, God, he wasn't just going to, like, God, they said, or at least the text it mentioned, it said God is not going to cast pearls before swine. So pretty much the hearts of the hearts of the Israelite people became callous, and we all know what a callus is, right? Like you lift something heavy, you might blister up, and it's like get strong, like basically stick, right? It means that their hearts wasn't in the right place. Their hearts wasn't open to God at this time, and because their hearts weren't open to God, what was seen is that they was like, oh, we ain't heard from him. Like he's still here, like we ain't heard from him. They honestly don't expect God to even still be a thing at this time, and so um, when God started calling out to Samuel, it was actually strange. Well, strange to Samuel because he was only a child at this time. He didn't know what God sounded like. So of course, his instinct is to run. Oh, you hear your name called? Well, I'm gonna run to who normally calls my name, which is most likely this time Eli, because Eli is getting older. I know when he died, he was 98, so he was getting up there in age at this time, and pretty much God is calling out to Samuel, or keeps calling out to Samuel. He keeps going to Eli, as we read. He said, Eli keeps telling him, go lay down, go lay down. And then he realized, oh, it's God calling him. It's not me, because Eli keep coming back. He's like, oh, it must be God. And so now Eli is starting to recognize, okay, well, Eli gave Samuel instructions on what to say back to God to at least start having a conversation. And so Eli did it, and God gave him a revelation, which was actually a big revelation at the time as well. And really, this revelation goes back to what was prophesied in chapter 2, because in chapter 2, which was before our lesson text starts, we see a man of God appears. And really, typically, I believe when the Bible says a man of God, what it refers to is that it was a pre-incarnate form of Jesus, if I'm not mistaken. Someone correct me if I'm wrong on that. But that's what I believe the Bible refers to when it says a man of God. And just that vaguely at least. And so pretty much when this man of God came, he had told him, he was like basically, he was telling Eli at this time, he was told him, this is back in chapter 2 before our lesson, he was telling him that pretty much your time gonna be cut short, your family gonna die, your bloodline gonna end, we know what you're doing. And because Eli he was sweeping a whole lot of stuff under the rug, because again his kids was off the chain, but he was sweeping a whole lot of stuff under the rug, and he won't chastise them, of course, I guess his kids was grown men. If once you don't raise your kids to a certain age, like I know if I was go out here and start, I guess, wilding out, or say I'm in the street, something like that, right? My parents can't do anything to reel me back in. I don't live in their house. I pay my own bills. I do everything myself, and so it's like, well, most things. And so with that being said, it's like you got no control. But Eli knew, but he won't even say anything to him, because I don't know if he was scared of his children. I don't know what it was, but yeah, he was scared. He was old too. Yeah, you can't give a grown man a whooping. You 60 years old yourself. You end up being whooped. And so, yeah, exactly. And so, with that being said, but basically, this is what the man of God that told him. He was like, basically, it's gonna be a price to pay. Basically, that's what he told him. And then when God talked to Eli, his first revelation to Samuel, excuse me. When God first talked to Samuel, his first revelation to Samuel was the fact that he basically told him, he was like, Eli's gonna start going blind. His children are gonna die young. All this XYZ. That's what was said and wasn't mentioned in our text, but that's what was said in verse 10 of chapter 3. Let me go back to where I was, so I got a little off track. Oh yeah, so Samuel, he didn't recognize God's voice at first, but after he did respond back, that's what he ended up revealing to him. That was his first revelation. It was a rebuke pretty much against Eli and his entire bloodline because of the sin that Eli's sons had did, and Eli covered up and / ignored, right? And really, what's also noted about Samuel is that God fulfilled all the words he spoke unto Samuel, and which was really the sign that he was a prophet, and a great prophet at that time. And the fact that, and pretty much because of this, like the fact that every single word, and no, it said in our actual lesson, no word, not a word from God fell to the ground. Oh yeah, as Samuel grew and the Lord was with him, did not let his words fall to the ground. So pretty much none of his words that he spoke to Samuel ever didn't come true. That everything he said became true. Got a lesson? A question? Yeah. Go ahead. Right. 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 Exactly. Exactly. Yes. And as I said, a great point. Samuel's obedience, it was like top tier, I will say, because I mean, I have family, older, younger, things like that, and I guess I'm not a child anymore, all right, but helping my younger cousins and stuff like that grow up, you can tell which one's obedience, which ones ain't. Just call their name and do they come, you know. That's at least I don't know. Maybe it's like I don't know. Maybe it's a black household thing. I don't know. But I just know in the household I grew up in, you say my mom say my name. I'm jumping up. Even if I'm taking a nap, I'm waking up and going to see what she want. Whether even if it's just to take the trash out or something like that, I'm waking up to go and do it because that's what obedience is. And you can tell like Samuel, he was the same way. He was very obedient. Like actually, he was asleep because we actually knew. It said in the ear, where did it say? We knew it was nighttime because the text actually, or the Bible itself says, oh, here it is in verse 3. And ere the lamp of God went out in the temple, because at nighttime they would light up, they would fill the lamp with oil. In the church, they would fill the lamp with oil, and it would burn from night until daylight, pretty much. And that's what they would use. The light would actually shine out of the temple of the Lord, and it was shine into the courtyard where the priest would sleep. And so that's where we know Eli as well as Samuel and all of them would sleep because they weren't sleeping in the temple of God; they were sleeping in the courtyard of it. And so, yeah, like again, he was asleep. Name was called. Woke up. You going to who you think normally calls your name. Um, so yes, that's a very good point. His obedience, but pretty much because of Samuel's obedience, as well as because of like his ability to become God's choosing him to be the next prophet, pretty much Samuel was recognized as a leader from Dan to Beersheba, is what the Bible says. And if you look at the map of Israel back then, Dan and Beersheba, that's the whole country. That's the whole country. That's almost as if like saying if God was to say, oh, from New York to Florida, or to say from California to Carolina. It's the whole thing, everything in between it. Like he was over all of it. And so pretty much this is a unique thing because I mentioned previously they was dysfunction. They weren't together anymore. The country was in a disarray at this time. Um, and then so now we're actually starting to get into Samuel's ministry. So a little time has passed. We went from chapter 3 to chapter 7. In this time, of course, Eli is still alive. Well, Eli's still alive when we left chapter 3. And so when I waited chapter 7, I should say, the Ark of the Covenant was stolen. What happened was Eli's sons, but they didn't ask God. They didn't ask any of these things. They just did it. So they took the Ark of the Covenant because they was getting whooped by the Philistines at battle, of course. And so they took the Ark of the Covenant to the battlefront thinking, oh, God going to come. When God comes, we gonna lay it on them. They took it to the battle. Philistines got scared at first, but of course they had a leader. I guess Captain America was out there. I don't know. But pretty much they had a speech, and he was like, y'all need to fight like men. So they went out there and fought the Israelites, and they won. Then they took the Ark of the Covenant with them. So that was something that happened. One of the soldiers ran from the battlefield to tell Eli that the Ark of the Covenant was stolen, and that also his sons were killed in battle. Eli died. I guess died of broken heart. I don't know how, but he died. At this time, he was 98. The Philistines, they took when they took the Ark of the Covenant, they took it back to their homeland because remember the Ark of the Covenant was overlaid with gold. Like think of this entire table, but think with full fit all gold. Similar to that. And so it looked like his money. Yeah, I'm gonna take it. I'm plundering. That's what I'm doing. I went to war. I'm taking everything. Taking your shoes. I'm taking your wallet. I'm taking your key. I'm taking your car too. And so pretty much, they took it back with them. They realized after 7 months, as soon as it got there, they realized they started breaking out in tumors, everybody in the land, because they stole the Ark of the Covenant. It's not their God, as well as it shouldn't have been there in the first place. And there's very specific rituals of being around the Ark of the Covenant for a reason, because it's a holy thing, the holiest of the holiest things, aside from God Himself, at this time. And so pretty much, what goes on is that so they move it from one location in their country to another location. The other location say, "Oh no, we don't want it either." Now our people are dying, so they moved it out the country altogether and gave it back to the Israelites. So that's what happened from chapter 3 to chapter 7. If you didn't read it, um, and so back to I guess the text of what's going on during this time period, of losing the ark and suffering heavy loss of life from Philistines, pretty much their occupation of the land, and from battles with them and things of that sort. Um, Really, the Israelites they finally started to pray. They started to get their stuff together. But typically, that's what goes on in life. People don't call on God until they need something. You know, and really, I mean, we all know that's what a lot of people do. You have, but and so pretty much the Israelites they started doing that as well because they just like us. We the same way. They started praying to God again, and they started coming back. And Samuel, he also, after Eli passed, Samuel was next in line to be. He was seen as being the prophet, being the guy, the judge of the land and everything. And so now they all back under one person. Now everybody respect him. They know everything this man says happens. Like he's like the weatherman almost. Oh, he's more than a weatherman, but like the weatherman. Oh, they say it's gonna rain. Oh, and I see rain. Okay, you can start to believe it more and more. I don't believe in Charlotte weatherman because they say it's gonna rain. It never do. Now I'm outside watering my grass. There's a difference. But so Eli, what he says, with Samuel, what he says comes true because God said it would, and it's God's word that he's bringing to the people. He's just the medium, the middleman, and so pretty much, Samuel he told the nation get rid of all your idol gods, all that, all the Balaam and the Azareth, he told them to get rid of all. So he got rid of all of it. And the people started getting rid of it and started to repent and to turn away from their wicked ways and come back to God. And really, God is the way God showed that He forgave them was that we saw God told Samuel. He says, in chapter 5, or verse 5 actually, it was chapter 7. He says, and Samuel said, of course God told him prior to do it, but He told him to gather all of Israel at Mizpah. And he's going to pray for you unto the Lord. He's going to pray for them. He's going to try to atone for them, right? And at this time, the Philistines, they know what's going on, what's going down. And so we're going to try to get them while they praying. They eyes closed and everything like that. They following rituals. They not ready. They're not paying attention and stuff like that. But at this moment, actually, because remember, the Philistine God was a God of, do y'all remember what I said it was? I know what it is, but y'all remember what I said the God for the Philistines was? Both of them. What's both of them? Yeah. However you say it, right? But I'm asking, do you know what they did? What God represented, though? Yes. Not the moon. No, not quite. And so you had the Balaam, right? The Balaam they represented the sky. Yeah. And so pretty yeah, and then Azeroth, they're the fertility god, right? But pretty much, so they hold into high regard the god of the sky, pretty much. And so what God did, in true fashion, He came through with a loud thunder, came through rumbling and everything. But it was so loud, it was to the point they all got scared because they ain't never seen a thunderstorm like this in their life, or ain't heard a thunder like this in their life. And so when they heard it, pretty much what happened was it threw them all in disarray. They all got scared, and at this point, the Israelites they know oh no, this is our God's work, and because it's our God's work, we are actually going to go after them now. We were praying, but now we're gonna go after them, and we're gonna hit them where it hurt. And so pretty much, they actually did conquer the Philistines at this moment. They defeated them in battle, because the Philistines tried to run up on them try to catch them, catch them slipping. But pretty much, what I should say is that this was God showing that, hey, I'm back with y'all. I hear y'all prayers. I'm going to actually answer y'all prayers. I'm going to help y'all beat the Philistines at this point. And also, I'm going to show the Philistines that I'm the true God. I'm the God of the sky. Your God of the sky is nothing. And so He did all this, and of course, it's divine ordinance, right? And so pretty much, that's what goes on. And really, what to note here is that Samuel's first concern with the nation really was spiritual. It wasn't like when we have see politicians running. We just had elections. I ain't seen not one commercial about God. It's always been about economy, one thing, trying to get gas prices back down, or about the whole abortion rights thing. That's what's all everything political type of stuff, right? It's politics or it's economy. It's never about anything spiritual. You say God, that's a problem. And so, well, to an extent, right? It's a problem. And so, but Samuel, he was different because his actual that was his number one agenda was to get the nation back right spiritually because he realized that when your spiritual priorities are right, the rest of your life will fall into place, right? And so that's really one of the main points. At least that's a giant point of the lesson. At least I think a good takeaway, something to good take home. And I was supposed to ask y'all earlier when I was talking about the battle, any other biblical victories that took place that's similar to what the Israelites just saw, where they was losing, they was down, then God came, at the end of the quarter, bottom of the half, bottom of the ninth inning, whatever it's called, however it goes. But I mean, if anyone wants to give me an example of another time that God came in and helped them to conquer or to win a victory, definitely is I guess now's the time to say it. Yeah. Mhm. Yes. Mhm. Right. Yeah, it was 300 of them. Mhm. Exactly. So that's actually the same one I thought of as well. When it came to God stepping in and showing His power during the midst of a battle. Because you gotta think it was a different things were different then. They live in a much different time than we live in now, I should say. However, it's a lot of the themes still run true, right? Even today, actually, people. I mean, of course, if you study history, America looked at always the underdog back when things first happened because we took over Britain or conquered the land. Is what they say. I don't know because I wasn't there, but that's what people were saying, and of course, what Miss Sharon just said that was plenty of times in the Bible. So what I'm saying, I say all that to say that it's the same. Well, we all know it's nothing new under the sun, right? It's all just remixed, if anything. That's why all the music today sound like, I just sound like a song from back in the day, or all the movies. Oh, they all remakes of movies that was happening in the past and things like that. Or at least the new movies now. That's what it seemed like. Um, but pretty much it's all the same. And even with a lot of the things that God had given us, like especially with the Bible, the text and whatnot. The reason they still have applications today is because it's nothing new. We all living in the same life, and trying to find our way back to God for the most part. But I know it's 10:20 now, so I'm gonna get ready to start closing out the lesson. Do anyone have any questions or points? Yes. Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. Right. Oh yeah, definitely, definitely. We saw how Eli, just because like his sons, they killed. They not only made their father go blind, but they also killed their entire bloodline off, and the priesthood was now passed on to another family, Samuel people now, because they wasn't doing what they were supposed to do. And so it's like good and bad, good or bad, I should say. You're because what you do, it will affect those around you. Um, that's why you always want to, of course, surround yourself and try to help the people around you to get closer to God and be on the right path, things of that nature. I'm pretty sure those the recent school shootings stuff like that. I know I've been hearing talks of they're trying to make it a law where it's like the parent of the children of the child that caused the killing, they now going to jail too. Cause like, how you not know? You know, you had to know something. Y'all live in the same house, you know. But that's another story for another day, I guess. Um, but in closing the lesson, that's what I want to get back to. God called Samuel pretty much in a special way during this time in history to judge the entire land, because they needed a leader that was going to bring all of them back together, right? So it was a very specific calling and a very special calling on Samuel's life, even before he was even born, right? And yeah, his mom had the prayer, but he was dedicated to God before he was even born. Like back when his mom prayed and made that vow, that was all before he was born. His life was already given to God, and so really, what something I wanted to say was to. Well, I was going to ask you what lessons for your own life you could take home from today's class, as well. And really, I guess what I wanted to speak on was more so about how God communicates with us on a daily basis, and how do we react when God speaks to us? What does our obedience look like? How do we even know when God is speaking to us, right? Or are we just doing things and going about life and hoping, after we do something, praying that, oh God, please help this work or help this be the right thing. Like they took they didn't ask to take it. You know, that's pretty much what I want to leave you all with. But I'll go over the practical points. I know there's actually some really good ones that I want to share. Here it is. Practical point number 1 says we should not assume that God is not at work just because we live in dark times. And I know that's definitely rang true given everything that I see on the news, right? So we shouldn't assume that God isn't working, because he definitely is. And also, number 4 is another one I like. It said repentance is not simply turning to the Lord, but it also means turning away from things that draw away from the devotion that he alone deserves, right? And then also number 2, I like, it says a willingness to receive God's words and respond in obedience is essential for servants of the Lord. So I'll leave you all with that, and I'll say a prayer to close us out, because I know we got the first bell, and I know another one gonna be coming around in a few seconds. So, Lord God, thank you for this day. Thank you for today's lesson. Allow it to rest well with us, and allow us to be more obedient to you. Continue to bless us. Forgive us for the things that we have done that were in disobedience, whether we knew it or didn't know it. So continue to work on us. Allow us to be more receptive, I should say, and forgive us. Don't charge it to our head, or our heart. Charge it to our head, I guess. Yeah, that's how it goes. Your son Jesus.